Good evening, welcome to the last three memories that arose as I walked down Grattan Street in 2008. Grattan Street is the sixth of 7 east-west streets that I walked down, and this is memory number 5. It's blue, the corner of Grattan and Lygon. Here in the upstairs room with the shiny wooden floor, my children spent the happiest Saturday mornings of their childhood. Here they had their first dancing classes with Mrs. Manjamele, and we all look forward to these mornings. Early each Saturday, parents took their shoes off, left on the landing of the floor below the classroom, and walked their children up to the doorway of the room and stood around for the first few minutes of the class, hoping to get a glimpse of their child whirling around as if in a trance, or waving along with 20 or so other little children, brightly coloured handkerchiefs. Once we were satisfied that each child had been launched into this wondrous space, we would all leave for an hour's welcome recreational leave, either to have a coffee and read the papers or to do some shopping. Then we would return to pick up the young ones, and some of us dropped off older children to the next class. On the ground floor of this building, the same store still sells cheap and comfortable shoes, but in order to get upstairs to the top floor, one has to take them off. Someone told me recently that Mrs. Manjamele's daughter is still running dance classes in the same top floor room. Some 30 years later, I wonder what all that free and liberating movement has done for those children. Now that they're adults, I wonder whether it has prevented ill health, or if it's clarified complex psychological issues for them, or perhaps even saved a few marriages. I see them around occasionally, these children, grown up now and carrying their little ones around. It's impossible to say whether those dancing classes of long ago have affected them one way or another. I cannot help thinking, though, that without having been given such loving permission by their adored Mrs. Manjamele to move freely to the wondrous music she played for them, their lives might now be infinitely poorer. The corner of Grattan and Drummond. I first saw the closed shutters on the windows of this little building a very long time ago, on the very first night we arrived in Melbourne. We walked past it on our way to Lygon Street, and when I first saw them, I remember my whole body softened a little, rearranged itself in a more familiar way. Even then, it was a restaurant that bore the same name it carries today, La Cachatora. Because its shutters have always been firmly shut, I've never been able to peer into its inner space, but I resisted the urge to walk through its front door to see what was on the other side until 2 years ago, when I took my parents for dinner there one night. I had wanted to keep thinking of this building as a kind of body containing a kind of ancient memory, one that also included me. I didn't want to think of it as a body containing a restaurant. I needed to think of it as an impenetrable body, with lidded eyes perennially shut. In that sense, perhaps asleep, but most certainly dreaming. The last memory, its colour is purple, the corner of Grattan and Royal Parade. Falling off a ladder is easy. The fall is endless, floating timelessly free until its finale rushes up at you suddenly. My cheekbone broke in 3 places. And within 2 days, the miracle workers in the hospital on this corner had put me to sleep, incised my skull, retrieved the broken bones, and held them back in place. For weeks, I could not sleep on that side of my face for fear of pushing the fragile realignment back into dysfunction. Through all the sleeplessness, I kept remembering how many others in far worse shape than me had streamed in one continuous wave into the emergency department, and how many had sat patiently for hours, both in pre-surgery and then in post-surgery. I could have spent a lot of time there every day, all day, watching everyone waiting, listening to families whispering to each other about how the cat at home was faring, others brawling about the long-buried or imagined hurts that had suddenly been resuscitated right here and now, all still alive and well. Now my healing is slowly taking place, and I am astonishingly grateful for the surgeon's work, astonished that this goes on all the time and has gone on for a very long time, if not forever. I have not understood how any of the extraordinary extent of good humour is dedicatedly applied to each and every single sufferer. Now, whenever I drive past, I salute the miracle that goes on daily, both in here and inside each and every little or big hospital around the nation, around the world. The miracle of piecing us together again without fuss, every minute of every hour of every day. I'm humble that men and women can do this, can actually make this happen. Never had any idea. Never, that is, until I was hurt myself and watched, astonished, as they expertly put me together again, resisting any attempt to acknowledge my overbearingly insistent gratitude. I touch my cheekbone and it's back where it was, as though the fall's only purpose was not so much to alert me to my own enormous and ever-present vulnerability, but to the healing goodness of others, not to the vulnerability and desperation of the injured, but to the goodness and generosity of the healer. That was the final and 7th memory that arose as I walked down Grattan Street in 2008. Every part of Grattan Street, from beginning to end. Tomorrow I move on to Faraday Street. The 7th East-West Street, and the last street of the 14 streets that make up this grid of 7 by 7. The recounting of these memories is coming to a close. And this situation that we find ourselves in, this overbearing and difficult and complex situation, still goes on. We'll see what happens next. Until tomorrow.